Hello and welcome to this video presentation on the broadcast structures of the National Football League or NFL and the English Premier League or EPL. Presenting in this video will be Jarrod Free, Liam McGrath and Henry Sykes.
We're going to discuss the major structural and organisational differences between the two leagues and the economic effects of their respective broadcast deals.
Finally, we will discuss the different broadcasting structures and regulations relevant to each country and their respective cultures.
The longest 3 months of the year are over.
The Premier League is back. And unusually a changing of the guard at the top.
Hope when you take that jump, you don't feel the fall. Hope when the water rises, you build a wall. Hope when the crowd screams out.
Over the past decade, broadcasting in the EPL has grown exponentially. We're winning the right to broadcast sport as a highly contested business, with media companies competing to have these billion-dollar contracts on their broadcasting portfolio. In 1992, the structure of professional soccer in the UK changed beyond recognition. The UK's most successful clubs formed a breakaway league and created the English Premier League. In 2001, the broadcasting rights were sold to British Sky Broadcasters for $1.68 billion on a 3-year contract, with an annual fee of $559 million, allowing British Sky Broadcasters to televise more live matches than ever before. Since 2001, there were only 66 games broadcasted live across one broadcaster, with each match costing $8 million, whereas currently today there are two broadcasters broadcasting all 154 games live across the UK, which each match costing $10.1 million. British Sky Broadcasters and British Telecommunications are the current 2016 to 18 contract owners, with Sky Sports buying 5 out of the 7, with the total cost of the deal coming to $8 billion, with each game costing $15.8 million. The total figure is a rise of more than 70% on the 2013 to 2016 contract.
Here in this section we will discuss some of the positives and negatives of the English Premier League's current broadcast structure. First up, the positives. The English Premier League and Sky Sports have a long-standing broadcast partnership which has been extended from the 2016-17 season. Next, 43% of all broadcast revenue is generated from overseas. Thirdly, commercial breaks are scarce during English Premier League broadcasts. The English Premier League generates commercial revenue through matchday signage and naming rights sponsorships. And finally, teams who perform well have a greater share in the broadcast revenue. So for example, the team who comes first during the English Premier League season receives the largest sum of money. Next up, we have the negatives. There is little control over who and how games are being streamed online. Next, games aren't broadcast in a wide variety of languages. And finally, UK law interferes with some broadcasts. However, this will be discussed later on in our presentation.
That video was the intro to Sunday Night Football on NBC. It goes a bit longer than that in the full broadcast, But that basically shows you off all the showmanship and the grandeur of the NFL, how they try and make it a great big party for everyone involved. So obviously they've got a very big name star there in Carrie Underwood performing. Quite famous, they've got all the players involved. So they make a very big deal out of it. It's all a great big party and it's worth watching. On the NFL, their match scheduling is rather different to the English Premier League. So in the NFL, you've generally got a Thursday night game, and then a lot of games on Sunday. So there'll be about two or three time slots, depending on what round it is. 2 or 3 time slots where all the games are played at once. So you might have 10 games played at once, simultaneously, and then you'll have Monday Night Football, which is a huge deal. So the current NFL deal is significantly more lucrative than previous deals. 2001, I believe it was worth roughly $1 billion per annum total, whereas now you've got 4 different networks all paying over $1 billion, or roughly $1 billion in the case of CBS, NBC and Fox, to broadcast various games each year. You've got DirecTV, they pay to do streaming rights, and then there's ESPN, which pays a rather large $1.9 billion every single year to have the right to broadcast. So the collective bargaining agreement dictates that 55% of league media income goes towards players, so salary caps. That rises and falls as only really rises as the broadcast deals increase. The NFL, it says right there, is the world's highest grossing sports league. Makes a lot of money.
The vast majority of the NFL's audience is located within the United States of America, and the league is happy with this and feels that any international audience gained is just icing on the cake. Secondly, there are a large number of television networks all bidding for the broadcast rights to National Football League games. For the National Football League, this means increased broadcast revenue and increased exposure through national television networks. The broadcast revenue is evenly distributed to each team. This allows small market teams like the Cleveland Browns to have similar budgets to the large market teams like the New England Patriots, and thus creating a more level playing field. Finally, games are scheduled on Thursday, Sunday, and Monday nights. This is so that National Football League games don't compete with high school football, which is played on a Friday, and college football, which is played on a Saturday. Next up, the negatives. Since 2001, a local blackout rule has been enforced, meaning that home games would not be televised live in the team's local market unless all game day tickets were sold out. However, as of 2015, the league's owners have voted to no longer enforce this rule. Secondly, it's difficult to control how the games are being streamed online. And thirdly, there are a large number of commercial breaks during play. Uniform and on-field sponsorships are virtually non-existent. Commercial revenue for the National Football League is generated through advertising during commercial breaks and breaks in play.
So looking at the differences between EPL and the NFL, first one is with the broadcasting. The EPL been with Sky Sports for quite a while. It's pretty much one broadcaster. You've got a couple of other ones that will show highlights and whatnot, but Sky Sports is synonymous with the EPL, whereas the NFL, some people will think about ESPN, but they've got lots of broadcast partners all competing. EPL, you got a lot of the revenue comes from overseas, whereas NFL is mainly domestic, so they just focus on the USA. That's where the majority of their market is. EPL, government involvement, so the broadcast laws dictating what has to be on free-to-air. They make a significant difference to how the EPL operates their broadcasting, whereas for the NFL, the American government isn't involved in terms they don't dictate anything regarding what has to be shown on free-to-air TV. You've got uneven revenue distribution in the EPL, so when you win, you get more money. It's a bit of a rich get richer system, whereas the poor teams will often struggle because you get clubs like Manchester United that just make millions upon millions, which leads to winning, which leads to making more millions upon millions. Never-ending cycle. NFL is a nice even revenue distribution in regards to broadcast funds. The NFL also has a very homogenous audience. It's pretty much just Americans. You'll get a fair few Mexican and a bit of Spanish audience, but other than that, it's mostly American. There's obviously a bit of a sprinkling of fans around the world, but not too much. Pretty homogenous. Compare that to the EPL, where it's a worldwide game. Absolutely. Both sports are pay TV. So NFL, cable TV in America. Premier League in soccer, you've got Sky Sports. Obviously, that's a subscription service as well. So there's a lot of differences there. There's also some similarities. We've touched mainly on the differences, but they are vastly different leagues.
The first live televised football match was in 1937 in a specially set up match between Arsenal and the Reserves. As mentioned earlier, the English Premier League and Sky Sports have a long-standing broadcast partnership. This partnership has seen the number of live games televised grow from 60 in 2001 to 168 in 2016. The Offices of Communication, or Ofcom, Code on Sports and other listed and designated events requires a number of sporting events to be televised free-to-air. They are broken up into two categories. Category A sports are required to be shown live on free-to-air TV, and Category B sports, which can be televised live on a pay television network as long as a delayed broadcast or highlights are shown on free-to-air TV. And finally, because the UK is relatively small, local broadcasts are usually limited to just radio. Here in this section, we will be discussing some facts about American broadcasting culture. In 2015, North America generated $9.58 billion in sports broadcast revenue, affirming what we already know. Sports broadcasting is a large and profitable industry. Unlike the United Kingdom, the American government has no say in which sports or events are televised free-to-air. This has created a large number of pay TV and streaming networks within the United States of America. Finally, there are a large number of broadcasters, both nationally and locally. However, there isn't much overlap in coverage. And what we mean by this is that an NFL game might be carried by one national TV station, like CBS, one local TV station, one national radio station, like ESPN Radio, and one local radio station. And finally, will be broadcast on the NFL Network, which is a pay TV and online streaming service. This way, there is only one type of network covering the game at any one time.
So there are a few clear differences between the UK and the USA in regards to broadcasting. In the UK, it's heavily government controlled. There's a lot of laws in regards to what must be shown on free-to-air, whereas in the US, the government doesn't really touch it. People can buy and sell whatever they want in terms of broadcasting rights. There's a lot more competition in America, whereas the UK, there's a few really big players, whereas in America, there is lots of regional and then national broadcasters, often working together rather than competing as such. So, just recapping everything, it's pretty clear that there's a reason these are the two most lucrative sports leagues in the world. They're extremely popular sports. They bring in lots of money through their broadcasting deals, and both of them have dramatically increased their financial value since 2001, and they really show absolutely no signs of slowing down.